everyone. It's good to see all your faces and at least your names on the screen. So the last tour we did of Jerusalem was obviously a live tour of Jerusalem, and I wanted to recreate that in some way with kind of all of Israel, but I find that that would have been impossible to do that within an hour of Zoom. So what I did was the past week, I went around to different spots in Tel Aviv and Jaffa, and all the way from Tel Aviv all the way up to Jerusalem, different areas that I thought represented different aspects of Israeli society and culture, and I took photographs. So I would say the 95% of the photographs you're going to see in this tour, this virtual musical tour of your Cantor's version of Israel, is pictures I took this past week for this event. We'll get started. I'm going to share my screen. This is how it's going to work. I'm going to share. Oh, I need to be able to I need the host to let me share my screen. Sorry. I'm going to share my screen, and you're going to see kind of like a PowerPoint, and I'm going to just guide you through Israel, basically. Here we go. So we've got this, share, and let me know if you can see my screen. Yeah? All right. And you can see me, right? You hear me, you see me, and you can see the screen. Great. So here we go, our homeland, a virtual tour of Israel through the eyes of your Chazan. So chapter, I'm just getting used to it, don't worry. Chapter 1, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and everything in between. Here you have a Jaffa orange and a rose, which I thought represented Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Tel Aviv being the sweetness of the tapuz, and the rose being the thorny but beautiful home city of our people. So we're going to start our tour with a song from Dag Nachash, which is a favorite band all over Israel. The reason why I have this picture up of Adam Sandler from Don't Mess with the Zohan is because the song we're about to play is the song that opens up the actual movie Don't Mess with the Zohan. It's called Hina Ani Ba, and it's basically a song that was written by this band Dag Nachash, which is basically a band that represents kind of Israel in a nutshell. It's funky, it's rap, it's Middle Eastern, it's Mediterranean. It's kind of got all this music in one. Basically, the song Hinani Ba is a song about a journey that maybe an Israeli might take between the cities of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, living in the cities of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. So as we go through the song, you're going to be able to look at the words, and they're really fun words, and they're kind of humorous. So here we go. You might, if you can't hear well, that's okay. Most of the tour is not through my speakers. So we were in Jerusalem, and now we want to go to Tel Aviv. We're sick of the heaviness of Jerusalem. We got to get to Tel Aviv. I wrap up my sins in my bags and I go back to Jerusalem. So you get the point that this is there is a tension between the two cities of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and as we go through this tour, you'll get to see some of those tensions, some of those harmonies, some of the dissonance, and I hope you get a flavor of how I feel about both Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. And at the end of this tour, I'm going to ask all of you, what are you, a Tel Avivnik or a Jerusalemite? You'll have to make that decision. And we'll see where Tifereth Israel lies, in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, or somewhere in between. So Yaffo, we're going to start in Yaffo in Tel Aviv. Yaffo is a very, very old port. And this picture of a whale, of the statue of a whale, is actually a statue in Yaffo, a fountain, and it's the whale that ate Jonah, and we're about to read that on Yom Kippur. And if you read the book of Jonah, when he leaves the port to go to Nineveh, he goes through Yaffo. So we know Yaffo is a very old city, because in the Tanakh, we already see in Yonah that Yaffo is existed. So in the next couple pictures are kind of the food you might get in Jaffa. Here we have a knafa. Knafa is a dessert, a Palestinian dessert made with cheese and different types of kind of bready. I don't know how to explain, but it's a dessert. And here I took a picture of a place called Yafa Knafe. You can see there's a religious Muslim woman serving customers, and it just shows you kind of the diversity you'll get in Jaffa and Tel Aviv, a mostly Arab populated area of Tel Aviv that serves everyone, that basically everyone comes to get good food. Here's two restaurants, or two places, Shifra and Pua. I would say that Ariel and I really enjoy Pua. It's one of our favorite restaurants. I want to point out that Tel Aviv is considered a very secular city. It's a very secular city, and a lot of people don't want to have anything to do with religion. But even with that much secularism, it's the secularism of Tel Aviv and of Israel is basically, it's sewn into that secularism is biblical Judaism. So here you have two treif restaurants. Pua serves, I think, shrimp and meat and milk together, and Shifra is a imported goods place. Shifra and Pua were the basic, what are they called? They were the ones who saved the Jews from Pharaoh. Sorry, what? Midwives who refused to throw the girls into the Nile River when Pharaoh told them to. So here you can see a little bit of mixing in with, mixing of Tanakh with secular Tel Aviv. Another aspect of Tel Aviv's food is that it is the vegan capital of the world. I literally wrote vegan capital of the world in Google, and Tel Aviv popped up. And here's a screenshot of that. So you can fact check me, but that's a screenshot of what I typed in. There are a lot of vegan restaurants and people, and you can read that a lot of that has to do with the organic food, or the food that's brought in from very close. So I want to introduce you to a place that I love dearly in Yaffo called Yaffa Cafe. I consider it an oasis. Yaffa Cafe is a small little cafe in the heart of Yaffo that was basically started by a Palestinian and a Israeli, like a Palestinian Arab and Israeli Jew. And together they created this kind of peaceful cafe called Yaffa Cafe. And in it there's a book library where you can read books that you wouldn't normally see in, like Steinmetzky's, the popular, like the equivalent of Barnes and Noble in Israel. Here you will see books that are about things that you might not normally see. And I find that it's a very beautiful place because it was built by both a Israeli Jew and a Palestinian Muslim Arab. So I thought that picture kind of represented that, and that picture was taken in Yafo by an artist. Shuk HaPishpishim is where you go to get like secondhand goods. Now, the reason why I wanted to show you this picture is this was taken last week, middle of August. This is like one of the top times of tourism, and it's completely empty, which shows what's Corona is doing to every city in the whole world. Usually this street you can't move without bumping into people, and here it's almost empty. This is a place called Mesquite. You can see someone you might recognize, at least from her hair in the back. This was the first fashion house founded in Israel. And I thought it very interesting. I love in Tel Aviv how fashion and the new kind of blends with the old. Here is a perfect example of that. You have a very, very trendy top kind of fashion designer on the left, and then you have these arches from like maybe 200 or 300 years ago of ancient medieval Jaffa, and I find that very particular about the city of Jaffa, which I love. And there's just a beautiful picture of these flowers on the wall, but I wanted to point out that similarly to Venice, when Ariel and I went to Venice for our honeymoon, we spoke to a Venetian person, and we said, it's so beautiful here, and they said, we have a little space, so we take the little space we have and make the most beautiful things we can out of it. And I find that is very similar to Jaffa. They really, or Tel Aviv as well. If you have a little porch, you make it as beautiful as you possibly can. So I just wanted to point out this song, this little trailer here. You could see in the middle of it, it says "Dare to Dream Eurovision." I'm not your toy. So Tel Aviv musically is a little bit different than the rest of the country. Tel Aviv is kind of like the representation of Israel and the Eurovision. Very like European style music. If you know this song, "I'm Not Your Toy," it's a song that won Eurovision for Israel only 2 years ago, which brought Eurovision to Israel. Here's a leftover trailer from that. And you'll see as we go through the tour, the difference between Tel Aviv music and Jerusalem music and politics. But one of the main differences is that Tel Aviv is very into similar styles like Europe, Berlin, and that type of music. So here we have Rabin Square, and what's very beautiful about Rabin Square and sad at the same time is Rabin Square is unfortunately where Yitzhak Rabin, the great leader of Israel for peace, was shot and killed, and it's become basically the place for protests, the place for public gatherings. If there's a government event, it's happening at Rabin Square. So I'm going to sing a song that is very powerful and very Tel Avivi, but it's also very just Israeli. The song is Shir LeShalom, and I'm sure a lot of you know this song. Shir LeShalom was a song that when Yitzhak Rabin was killed and was shot and killed, the song was folded in his chest pocket. So the bottom picture on the right, unfortunately, is the picture of the song Shir LeShalom that was covered in his blood. I don't mean to share that with you like that, but it's such a powerful image. The person who sang it and made it popular is Miri Eloni, and she actually, for free, sings outside of the Carmel Shuk on Fridays. So you can read the words, "Let the sun rise up, light up the morning, the purest of prayers." But I want to just skip to the chorus before I sing it. Shir LeShalom. It's only a song of peace. Don't whisper it in a tefillah. Sing it out loud with a great yell. Song of peace, a song of peace. תנו לשמש לעלות, לבוקר להאיר, הזעקה שבתפילות אותנו לא תחזיר. מי אשר קבע נרו ובעפר נטמן, בחימה לא יאירו, לא יחזירו לכאן. איש אותנו לא ישיב, מבו תחתית אפל, כאן לא יועילו לו שמחת הניצחון ולא שירי הלל. לכן רק שירו שלשלום, אל תלחשו תפילה, מוטב תשירו שלשלום בצעקה גדולה. So that song is Shir Shalom, and it's a very, when it politically, I find it very much represents Tel Aviv, kind of like a, don't pray for peace, don't ask God for peace, just go out and make it, just go out and do it. Don't expect God to do it for you, go out and do it. And one saying that Yitzhak Rabin always put down was, there's a famous saying called, in Israel that goes like this: Hakol yeh beseder, everything will be good. And Yitzhak Rabin would say that's the worst saying in the world, because every time someone says that, they're just shrugging off the responsibility of making it happen. It's only going to happen if we go out and do it. And that's kind of like the Tel Aviv secular Zionist way of doing things. So here's Rabin Square last week. Israel made, this is not my picture, Israel made peace, a peace deal with the United Arab Emirates, and in general the Rabin Square is lit up when cool things happen or sad things happen in the world to show comfort. So here's the picture of United Arab Emirates flag, and 2 weeks ago, this was crazy and a huge deal, the Lebanese flag after the explosion in Lebanon. Again, this is not my picture, but I found it very powerful to see just this is a symbol of peace and of going out and creating these opportunities. Ben Gurion, that's me in a picture a couple months ago. Ben Gurion is another representative of Tel Aviv politics, the founder of the Labor Party, the liberal left-wing party that I would say most Tel Aviv votes for. So I found that very interesting. Here's some graffiti slash things you might see in Tel Aviv that you would see less in Jerusalem. Here's just Shalom Achshav, peace now. This is an interesting kind of, I would call it graffiti or something. In Israel, when we vote with these little like cards, and they look like this. And this card says Ahavat Chinam, baseless love. So we say baseless hatred, and this is baseless love. So instead of voting for the Blue and White Party or Likud, just vote for love. Just look for love. Now, I wrote Summer is Coming. I couldn't find the graffiti, but something that's very relevant that comes out once in a while is there's this graffiti of Bibi Netanyahu's head, and on top of it said, Summer is Coming. And it kind of is paying tribute to the HBO TV show Game of Thrones, Winter is Coming. They say that a lot. It means like the end of the world. And in Israel, when you say summer is coming, it meant that probably a war is coming, because all the wars in the last couple of years have been fought in the summer. And it's really critiquing in a cynical way Bibi Netanyahu's government, and also pointing and showing how crazy it is. I thought this was a funny picture. There's kind of funny things in Tel Aviv you see. There's a lot of humor, and it's a little bit cynical, and here, it speaks for itself. If you're heading into Tel Aviv, you might pass the Rebbe, who's going to bless you going in, and here it says the Messiah, the Mashiach, and I think that's really powerful. It's basically the religious Jews, Lubavitch Jews, want to convince the secular Jews in Tel Aviv to become religious and repent and keep all the mitzvot the way they do it. And obviously, we need a reminder when we go into Tel Aviv that the Rebbe is the Messiah. And before we leave Tel Aviv, I thought this was a cute sticker. There's a famous saying, "Im eshkachech Yerushalayim," if I forget Jerusalem, may I forget my right hand. And this is a cute sticker. It says, "Im eshkachech Tel Aviv," if I forget Tel Aviv. So now we're going to head out of Tel Aviv, up the coast, up towards Jerusalem on Kvish Hanan, street number 1. And our first stop is in Latrun. Now the reason why Latrun is our first stop is because Latrun has a lot of meaning to my family and myself. Rabbi Josh knows the guy in the uniform. That's my older brother Hemi, who is in the 77 Brigade, which is Chativa Sheva, which in Gematria is Oz, which we sing Oziv Ezimata Yavayi Lishua. My brother's son, his second child, is named Oz, either after strength, Oz, which means strength, or after 77, his tank brigade. But I want to just share a quick story about my brother in the tanks. Like myself, my brother has a strong connection to the tefillah and to the services. We grew up pretty traditional. And during one of the wars in Gaza, he was in his tank for two and a half weeks. He's taller than me and bigger than me. So you can imagine how crazy that would be to be in a tank for that long. And during that time, it was Passover. And they didn't know who to lead. They didn't know what they should do for the Passover Seder. So my brother was chosen because he had the best knowledge of the Passover Seder to lead the Passover Seder, but not just for his tank, for the whole battalion. Basically, maybe, I don't know how many tanks. He did it on the radio. Now, they had other radios that, God forbid, something happened, but I found that a beautiful story about how my brother, in the middle of war, led the Passover Seder in a tank to a whole battalion. Our next stop is the Elvis Cafe. People don't really know about the Elvis Cafe so much, but the Elvis Cafe is the representation of the Americanization of Israel. Besides all of us, new immigrants and immigrants that come from America, Israelis love America so much. They want to be American. Actually, they want to be Californian. I'm not going to lie. California is like the place, Silicon Valley, the whole thing. That's where everyone wants to go. And this is a great representation of the Americanization of Israel. Here's a picture of Elvis. This is actually a week ago. I took this picture at the Elvis Cafe. Tom Segev wrote a book called Elvis in Jerusalem, Post-Zionism and the Americanization of Israel. You can read it. And here he has a McDonald's sign in Israel. And speaking of Elvis, someone who I think is very similar to Elvis in Israel is a guy named Shlomo Altzi. He's like our Bruce. He's kind of like Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, and Elvis combined. You can listen to him. And one of the songs he sings, I'm not going to sing it because it's a long song. One of the songs he sings is Eretz Chadasha, a new land. And he's talking to his son in a car. And he says, Yeshli Isha, Zota Ima Shelcha. I have a woman, she is your mom. Nisa will travel and travel. Ulai nagia ad machar. Maybe we'll get there tomorrow. Im lo na'et. If we don't slow down, if we don't look back, if we don't pay attention to the small things, we will get to a new land, a new hope. So that's Shlomo Altzi, and kind of like a pop idol of Israel, the Elvis, Bruce Springsteen, and Bob Dylan of Israel. He's there. Our next stop is Abu Ghosh. I did not take this picture, but I want to talk about Abu Ghosh because it's my kind of link into the Israeli food and all about it. Here we have a big bowl of hummus. Abu Ghosh hummus is considered either one or two ranked in the world for best hummus. Abu Ghosh is an Arab town on the way up to an Arab-Palestinian town on the way up to Arab-Israeli town on the way to Jerusalem. I actually was there the day of my wedding eating hummus. Hummus in Israel, as you know, is basically the cement of what cements Israelis together. It's probably used in everything from trying to heal people from coronavirus to the cement building the buildings here in Israel, to the bomb shelters. I mean, we use it for everything. No. So hummus is a huge deal in Israel, and Abu Ghosh is either number one. Number two, they say, is Lebanon. There's Lebanese hummus apparently is also ranked number one or two. Here we have a couple of Israeli foods that are very popular. On the top left is sachlab. On the top right is kube. Sachlab is a warm drink that they have in the Mediterranean. It's got like coconut and different, and it's kind of milk based. On the right is kube soup, which is Kurdistani. It's just really good. I don't know how to explain it. On the bottom left is a Jerusalem mixed grill, which is all the stuff that most people don't eat. Jerusalemites eat, which is like the hearts, the kidneys, I don't know the kidneys, but the liver, all of that good stuff that nobody likes to eat. They throw it into a grill, and that's a Yerushalmi grill. That's what you'll get in Jerusalem. I personally don't like it, but people love it. And on the right is shawarma. All right. As we head up to Jerusalem, we're getting closer and closer. We're getting to what we call Mayanot Springs. I took this picture on Wednesday last week. Here's a fresh spring. Spring culture in Israel is huge. Tel Aviv has the beach. It has the ocean, the waves. It has, you can just go and cool off in the water of the beach. Jerusalem and the surrounding area, we don't have that. We have Mayanot, we have springs. And they're little pools of water, of fresh water that gather, that people make these pools out of. And they're very popular. They're so popular that people have written songs about it. Here we have a song that you all probably know, and it goes like this. El ha'ma'ayan, bagdi, bagdi katan, el ha'ma'ayan, bagdi katan. So I'm going to say el ha'ma'ayan. Every time I say a sentence, you repeat it. El ha'ma'ayan, bagdi, bagdi katan, el ha'ma'ayan, bagdi katan. Hashalom lo, lelavan ben betuel. Hashalom lo, ulerachel. So these are some of the things you'll see going up to Jerusalem as you get to Mayanot. I took this picture also not less than a week ago. This was not taken a week ago. This is another Ma'ayan. Here's just a couple of pictures of Mayanot. This is my brother-in-law in the middle of the winter jumping into a Ma'ayan. It's also very popular to jump into the water when it's freezing cold. It kind of marks how strong you are, whether or not you jump in, how cold it is. I didn't go in that day, but it was, yeah. So here's our first appearance of our lovely Leo. One of the popular things to do when you're at a Ma'ayan in Israel at a spring is to make coffee on a fire or in a finjan. This is so popular that even in the times of the Palmach, the army the Palmach, the pre-Israel state army, they had a song about the finjan. Every week, every Wednesday, I go hiking. There's a lot of people who are hiking. You make your fire. You have your finjan, and you make coffee, and you invite people to sit with you and drink coffee. So the song, the words are there, and I'm going to sing it for you. And you probably know the melody. You've heard the song before. Haruach noshevet krira, nosifa kesam lemdura. וכך בזרועות ארגמן, באש יעלה כקורבן. האש מהבהבת, שירה מלבלבת, סובב לו סובב הפינג'ן. היי יננה, 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 ני, ני, היי ני, 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 ני. היי יננה, 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 ני, סובב לו סובב הפינג'ן. האש לקיסם תלחש, הדמוקו פנינו באש, אם לנו תגבורת תותן, מכל בדל ענף שבגן, כל עץ וכל קרש ישיר עזי חרש, סובב לו סובב הפינג'ן. יננה, 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 סובב לה סובב הפינג'ן. יננה, 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 סובב לו סובב הפינג'ן. So I love that song, and it really represents the spring coffee culture in between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Here's a couple more pictures of Mayanot, of different springs. Here's Leo and myself. Here's Ariel. You can see Ariel here. We were on a hike a week and a half ago, and you can see on the bottom left, middle of the summer, water is coming out of the mountain. I wouldn't drink the water there, but there are areas where it's coming out of the mountain you can drink. And I actually asked, when I'm in San Diego, I always ask if there's springs, if there's like natural springs. And if there are, your homework is to take me to them next time I'm in San Diego. It's important. I love natural springs, and you can see it's a very Israeli thing to do. Here's another Ma'ayan. There was a video I sent a year ago about the holiday Tu B'Av, and I took it at this. This is Ein Lavan, the Ma'ayan near Jerusalem. And in the mountains, you can see the mountains behind the spring. Unfortunately, the municipality just passed a ruling that there will be a new neighborhood in those mountains. So say goodbye. You might not be able to see the spring or the mountaintop, unfortunately, in a year or two. So here we're getting to Jerusalem. We're making our way up. We've done a little mikvah through the Ma'ayan, and now we're getting to Jerusalem. And Jerusalem, the music is a little different. I would say one of the biggest icons of Jerusalem, of Yerushalmi music, is Yoram Gaon, the 60s, 70s music star of Israel, who played Yoni Netanyahu in the movie Entebbe. He has a movie that he came out with all these great songs called Ani Yerushalmi, I'm a Jerusalemite. And one of my favorite songs is Ani Hineni Kan. So I'm going to sing it for you. I have to get my key. And it's actually one of my favorite songs in the world. Sorry. אני הולך אלייך כל ימיי, אני הולך עלייך מסונבר, האבנים פוצעות את כפותיי, אבל אני איני מרגיש דבר, אני חוזר מארץ רחוקה, מושיט ידיי לטוף את שערך, הנני כאן אך כמו יונה פצועה, אני נופל תמיד מול שערך. הנני כאן כמו ציפורים חגות, הנני כאן מביט מן הגגות, הנני כאן כמו אבן בגדר, כמו סלע כמו באר. אני האיש אשר תמיד חוזר, חוזר. So I love that song, and you can see the words, it's up there with Jerusalem of Gold. And some of the other words, I forgot to put that on. So we made it to Jerusalem, and the first sign of Jerusalem are the wacky rabbis on cars. Here's a car that says Saba HaMelech, our grandfather is the king. And this actually car has a speaker on top that's going to blast Hasidic music when it goes by. And this is actually Rabbi Nachman Mobile, who's a Hasidic Rebbe. And we get to Machane Yehuda, kind of like the equivalent of Jaffa, of Yaffo, of Jerusalem. This picture I took on this Friday. Right before Shabbat came in, I went and I started taking pictures. The reason why I took them on right before Shabbat is because the artwork on the stalls. If you can see on the left here, you can just see a little bit of the murals that are painted on the stalls when they're closed. Also, unfortunately, today, if you go to the shuk, it's not like it usually is. Usually you go there on a Friday and you can't move. Kind of like Shuk HaPishpishim in Yafo, you can't move without getting bumped by somebody. Unfortunately, during Corona times, this market it's not empty, but it's not as packed. So as we go through Machane Yehuda, I'm going to point out some things that I think are special about Jerusalem and Machane Yehuda. First is Rabbi Josh. I don't know, Rabbi Josh, I can't see you, but I'm going to point out that this is Rabbi Josh's favorite.
I'm here. That's my favorite place in the entire world.
Yes, every time we're going to turn off some microphones or mute people. Can you hear me? because yes, you can hear me. Marzipan is just a wonderful bakery and pastry that Rabbi Josh and I dearly love, and probably any like American who's ever been to Israel loves this place. This is what the shuk looks like right before Shabbat on a Friday. In general, as you can see, there's a lot of bars that are open, but because of Corona times, they're not open. And also what is happening a lot in this shuk in Jerusalem is that instead of selling vegetables, fish, meats, and all the things you would get to make food at home, they're slowly, these stalls are turning into bars and top restaurants. One of the top restaurants is Machane Yehuda. It's not a kosher restaurant, but it's a very famous place. Another place I like to point out is called Ish Tabach, playing off the words of Yishtabach. Ish Tabach means the man of the kitchen, and it's a very Iraqi style food place, very meaty. Another thing I wanted to point out, this isn't the shuk, this is a drink called arak. Very important in Jerusalem. The difference between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv is the drinks that you order at bars. So in Jerusalem, you're going to order probably maybe a Gold Star beer, which is a local beer, the cheapest local beer, and you'll probably get a straight shot of arak, which is licorice. It's anise liquor, but it tastes like licorice. And in Tel Aviv, you're going to probably get a more sophisticated cocktail, more European, a wine. So I just wanted to point that out. So here's one of the murals I wanted to show you is Jabotinsky. Jabotinsky being a more militant Zionist thinker before the creation of the state of Israel, who Menachem Begin, based a lot of his he was a big follower of Jabotinsky. Here in Jerusalem, you'll see a lot more of this political pull to the more militant, a little more right-wing, religious, and you'll see that as the tour goes on, the politics. In this picture, you can see a mural of Rabbi Goren blowing the shofar. Rabbi Goren, this is the iconic picture of him when the paratroopers came into the Temple Mount. He blew the shofar, and that's the mural of that. And the words I chose to represent that were the words by Naomi Shemer in Jerusalem of Gold. Shofar koreh mehar habayit, a shofar sound from the Temple Mount, Be'ir Ha'atikah in the Old City. Here's another mural of Daniel wrestling a lion, or maybe David, I'm not sure. This is a mural of Leonard Cohen. And the reason why I wanted to point that out is, first of all, Leonard Cohen, if you look at the mural, right next to his nose, there's a hand going like this. This is one of the things that the Kohanim do when they're doing the blessing over Israel. They go like this. They do this, and they do these things with their hands. So Leonard Cohen, a Cohen. And I say hallelujah at 2 a.m. because there's a tradition in Israel on the army radio to play hallelujah at 2 a.m. on Thursday morning. So if you're awake on Friday morning, 2 a.m., you're going to hear hallelujah. And I think it's a very special small detail of Israeli culture. Another bit of Jerusalem culture is kind of like the music, bar scene, cafe scene. The music is usually kind of like rock. Here's Ariel and Leo at a little corner cafe on Rehov Aza on Aza Street. And here's a live band just playing music. And this is a picture I took a couple weeks ago of a couple of young men just practicing music outside on the Tayelet, on the promenade. In Jerusalem in general, the vibe is very like sing when you're outside on the street, play music. There's like a feeling of that like Davidic kind of musicianship. I'm not trying to explain it, but the music of prayer is in the air. And a couple pictures coming up are pictures of minyanim that are happening. The synagogues obviously aren't meeting inside, so they've created spaces outside to hold synagogue services. This is just random photos of this happening. This is supposed to be the Gray Synagogue, right? Well, the doors are shut, and that's the minyan that they have outside. So it's really sad, actually, that's what's happening. the Great Synagogue on a given Shabbat will have 300 to 500 people in synagogue, and here they have barely a minyan outside of their synagogue. Rabbi Josh, I think, knows about this place, the Shtibelach. The Shtibelach has minyan now outside. It's basically another word. The Shtibelach is like a small little shtibel where you can get a minyan, and here they have a minyan every 10 minutes. From sunrise to midnight, you can get a minyan, which is pretty cool. So here in Jerusalem, you're going to see a lot of this in the morning, people davening outside, praying outside. I find it very beautiful. And another thing I didn't get a picture of is Jerusalem really is a city of prayer. So you have the Jewish people praying like this, but also very, very often you'll see Muslim construction workers or Muslims on the street taking time to pray, and you'll see they pray similar to the way we pray on Yom Kippur, and where they get down on their knees. And I just love seeing that in our city, Jerusalem. That it's really a city of prayer. Jerusalem dress is a little bit different than Tel Aviv. Here we have typical Jerusalem dress, someone with black hat or a fur hat. Tama is another way of basically saying that the city is rebuilding itself. Builds such as my building, that could be, if they're 30 or 40 years old, they're being redone by the government to make them stronger, just in case earthquakes, and look better. So I thought it would be interesting. Jerusalem dresses physically, but also when it comes to the buildings, it's kind of changing. Here's a Jerusalemite dressed in his full Hasidic garb. So something I wanted to point out, I'm going to stop video share for a second. And if you look closely to my screen, you'll see that in Israel, your kippah, your yarmulke defines your style of Judaism. It shouldn't, right? It's kind of like stereotypical. But depending on the style of kippah you wear, that's your politics or your how religious you are. So my kippah is kind of like I would say a neutral kippah, which it's knitted. First of all, it's knitted, which already means that it's not, let's say, like black velvet. So let's start with the black velvet. This black velvet kippah means Haredi mostly, ultra orthodox. So if you see someone wearing a kippah like this, they're probably wearing black and white. They're more orthodox, probably Haredi. Then you've got kippahs like this. And I love this kippah. I just don't wear it because it's kind of the sign of a, again, it's all stereotypes, but a settler might wear this. This is like a right-wing, I would say chaldal, Haredi le'umi, national Haredi, national ultra-Orthodox. So they'll wear like a big knitted kippah like this. And then you've got a white kippah like this, which I wore on my wedding. On Shabbat, many people put on white kippahs. On a normal day in Breslov, Hasidic, they wear white kippahs. They have the big ones. And so we'll see soon on our tour, we'll meet the one of kippahs with tzitzit hanging out while they're smoking cigarettes and texting curse words to their friends. And then another style of kippah, which I wear kind of a lot, is a small kippah, which is kind of like the liberal, I'm more in the middle of religious and secular. Maybe not someone who keeps all isn't completely observant, but wears the kippah, and they'll probably wear it a little bit to the side like this. And I usually wear kippahs like this. This is my style. So you'll see me kind of, when I come back to San Diego, you'll see me wearing small kippah kind of to the side. So those are some of the ways you can identify different types of. So now I'm going to bring you back to the tour. Are you with me or no? All right, here we go. Share screen. Share. And how does your strimal define you? As you see in this picture, there's a guy with a strimal, a fur hat. The strimals are only worn by Hasidim, and the Hasidim wear different types of strimals on holidays. You'll see some are tall, some are short, some are fat, some are the strimals. And also, it could really be a Dr. Seuss book. And if you notice, there's a biker with a white helmet. We're going to meet him later. He's going to make an appearance later in our tour. So this was really right before Shabbat. And I basically said, how do you get ready for Shabbat? And what's happening in Israel right now is similar to America. There's a lot of protests against the government, protests for many different reasons. And here is a picture of the protests happening. And here we have a religious Jew walking to synagogue and a bunch of, who knows, religious or or secular Israelis protesting, probably protesting the government that we have right now. Now, I really need to, before I continue, I need to discuss how soccer explains the world. Actually, this was a book that I read on global politics, but something you need to know about Jerusalem and Tel Aviv is that the soccer teams kind of represent also politics. So in Jerusalem, we have a team called Beitar Yerushalayim, which was like Yusuf Trumpeter, the militant Zionist kind of youth group of the 1900s. Is the Jerusalem soccer team is named after that, and Maccabi Tel Aviv is the sports Zionist sports kind of league that's been around for 200 years. But Maccabi Tel Aviv is left leaning, and Beitar Yerushalayim is very right wing. If you're a supporter of Beitar Yerushalayim, you're probably right wing. So much so that unfortunately they have a fan base that recently really popped up in one of the protests against the government and started bashing people in the head. So they're very aggressive and right wing. But what I want to point out is one of their theme songs that's become a song of Jerusalem is a song called Mishim Amin. Mishim Amin is a song. It's an old song, Anachnu Bamim Bemamnim. It's an old Hasidic song. Well, Ayal Golan, who is a Yemenite singer, who's one of the famous Mizrahi singers in Israel, wrote a song using that verse, and basically Beitar Yerushalayim, and Jerusalemites have basically adopted it as their theme song. And the reason why I'm going to play it on here is I can't do Ayal Golan justice. Actually, I'm going to sing it for you. So it goes like this. בכל מקום, כל הזמן, יש לכולנו מגדול ועד קטן, ימים יפים וגם פחות, וביניהם תשובה לכל השאלות. So it's basically saying, in every place, in every time, from big to small, there are good days and bad days, but there is one answer to all of it. I'm going to change the key. יש אלוהים אחד גדול, הוא בעולם הזה נותן לנו הכל, בין אפלה לקרן אור, את הנתיב אנחנו רק צריכים לבחור. So there's one God who's great, and he in this, הוא בעולם הזה נותן לנו הכל, in this world he gives us all, from darkness to light, and it's up to us to choose the way in which we go. וזה ידוע, החיים הם מתנה, הכל צפוי והרשות נתונה, מי שמאמין לא מפחד, את האמונה לאבד, ולנו יש את מלך העולם, והוא שומע אותנו מכולם. So basically, those who believe don't fear. You will never lose your faith. We have the King of the world with us, and he guards us from all evil. And this song has become basically the theme song of the right-wing Beitar Yerushalayim / Jerusalem fans or whatever. So you can see here are the protests. The police are out. I just had some pictures I wanted to show you of what's going on here. It's a little bit of the politics here in Jerusalem, as opposed to in Tel Aviv, where you have Ben Gurion and you have Yitzhak Rabin. Here in Jerusalem, it's more likely you're going to see Bibi Netanyahu posters. Here it says there's going to be a hafgana. There's going to be a rally for the Prime Minister Bibi. And here's a poster of Menachem Begin, who was like the first Likudnik, which is what Bibi Netanyahu is. He represents Likud. And basically, I guess Begin said, Milchemet Achim Lo'olam Lo. There will never be a civil war. But in Jerusalem, you have a lot more followers of Menachem Begin. And I thought that's a cute little sign that someone was put outside. Vayehi Ol. In Breshit, in the book of Genesis, we have the saying, let there be light. And here someone wrote Vayehi Ol. And in Jerusalem as well, I wanted to show you this because in the community that I belong to, it's very, it's not, you shouldn't take it for granted to be able to express yourself without getting harassed. And here you have a sign up that says Ahava Po Makimim Umekamot Mishpacha. So here, love, we create love, and it's a place of family. And you can see there's a pride flag. And in Jerusalem, at least in my neighborhood, you'll see pride flags out and about. And I really take my hat off to those people because I know a couple of my friends who've been harassed, whose flags have been torn down, whose houses have been egged, because we live in unfortunately, a very radical city. So I wanted to show you this. So before we finish our tour, we're about to finish our tour. The guy who was wearing a white helmet in the picture before, I wanted to tell you all, give you all a blessing. This is a video from the Shuk right before Shabbat. So you'll hear the alarm, the Shabbat alarm going off. In Tel Aviv, there is no Shabbat alarm. In Jerusalem, right before Shabbat comes in, you have this blaring siren that goes off, which gives you about 30 minutes before Shabbat comes in. So after this video, I had 30 minutes to get home, which took me about 20 minutes to get ready for Shabbat. So this guy gave you all a blessing.
Shabbat Shalom. אתה רוצה להגיד שלום לקהילה? למי להגיד שלום? זה קהילה בארצות הברית שאני עושה... תגיד שלום. אני רוצה להגיד שכולם יהיה להם הצלחה בחיים.
He wanted to say that everyone should have simchat chaim, happiness in their lives, health, long life, and happiness. So that's the end of my tour. I know it was a little different than what you probably were expecting. It was the best that I could do. But basically in Jerusalem, you have a lot of those type of people who are randomly will come up to you and bless you. And in Tel Aviv, you'll have more cynical kind of like, what do you want from me? Get away. There's no God. They'll be like, can you bless me? There's no God. That's the kind of these are all stereotypes, I know, but it's kind of the way I see it. So now, I'm going to ask the big question that I said I was going to ask you in the beginning. What are you? Are you a Tel Avivnik, a Jerusalemite, or are you somewhere in between? Maybe a kibbutznik. We didn't get to the kibbutzim today. We didn't get to a lot of things that we wanted to get to today. So maybe we'll have another tour later. So I'd like you to post in the messages what you are, and we'll count up the votes. Both. Oh, Tel Aviv. So right now Tel Aviv's winning. Half and half. It looks, oh, we've got a Haifa. Haifa. Yeah, Haifa's also, Haifa's, we'll get there. If you want, we can get there. Don't like big cities. Tel Aviv with the little Jerusalem. So I'm gonna say that I'm kind of half and half. Although I do love Jerusalem because it's the city of prayer, and it's the city we pray to, or we pray to God, but we face Jerusalem. But I know that both cities are very special to all of us, and I want to sing a last song. I'm going to sing that song again that I love, Hineni Khan, because I love it so much, and I hope that if you enjoyed the tour, I know it was very different than what you expected. It wasn't like the last tour. We have where to go. We have Caesarea. We have the settlements. We have Haifa. There's a lot more to see. We have also different Arab villages that we can go see on a tour. So if you want, we can do another one of these in the future. So the song Hineni Khan, about Jerusalem. אני הולך אלייך כל ימיי, אני הולך אלייך מסונבר, האבנים פוצעות את כפותיי, אבל אני איני מרגיש דבר, אני חוזר מארץ לא זוהה, מושיט ידיי ללטוף את שערך, הנני כאן אך כמו יונה פצועה אני נופל תמיד מול שערך, הנני כאן כמו ציפורים חגות, הנני כאן מביט מן הגגות, הנני כאן כמו אבן בגדר, כמו סלע כמו באר, אני האיש אשר תמיד חוזר, חוזר. I always be coming back. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this different tour of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Again, it was from my way of seeing it. Thank you very much.